Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the 16th day of March 2025, and I'm talking about parables these days. And today I have a passage from Matthew, 25th chapter, almost the very end of the book of Matthew. And Jesus is talking about what's it going to be like when the new kingdom of God arrives. For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them and made 5 more talents. And in the same way, the one who had the 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of these slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one with the 2 talents also came forward, saying, Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I know that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master replied, You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to all who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So Jesus' teaching stories, his parables, are some of the freshest and most powerful tools that he used to convey his message. There are 38 parables. There are 38 parables in the Gospels. These are stories that Jesus told to teach his listeners about the coming kingdom of God, the importance of prayer, the nature of love, and what is God like. For the next few Sundays, perhaps all of Lent, I'm going to be focusing on some of the most important teaching stories from Jesus. I can't think of a better way to prepare for the celebration of the resurrection. The parable for today is about how God will call for an accounting when the new kingdom of God arrives. If you look up the parable of the talents, what we encounter is a unit of money that we're not used to. A talent is worth roughly 6,000 denarii, and a denarius was the wage for a day laborer in those days. So this represents 6,000 days worth of labor for a day laborer. It was the largest unit of monetary wealth in the New Testament. 1 talent was worth approximately 20 years of wages. I read that a talent of gold would be about 33 kilograms of gold. And depending on what today's price for gold might be, that might be plus or minus $1 million. Now, there's a little bit on Facebook that some of you may have seen. If you've had a bad day, what you wish for is that someone would come by and sympathize with you and say, sorry you're having such a bad day. Here's a coffee and $3 million. So the man entrusting his slaves with his property is very well-to-do indeed, and he portions out to 3 slaves according to their ability. The first gets $5 million, the second gets $2 million, and the third gets a paltry $1 million. And the parable is about what the slaves do with what the master has entrusted to them. The first 2 take what they have been given and they double it. There was a rule among the Jews of that day that they could not charge interest on money lent to a fellow Jew. But luckily there were a lot of non-Jews in the area, and the Jews were free to lend money to non-Jews at whatever rate of interest they could get from them. So all 3 slaves entrusted with wealth by their master know that their master was a harsh man, reaping where he did not sow and gathering where he did not scatter seed. That is not to say, they're not saying that the owner, the master, was dishonest, but rather that the owner was expecting every advantage that was available. Now, 2 understand this, and they invest, each doubling the fortune that they had been entrusted with. The returning master responds with praise and gratitude. Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You've been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Interestingly, he doesn't free these 3 slaves. He says, enter into the joy of your master. The third, fearing that he might somehow screw up and lose some of his master's money, he dug a hole and put it in the ground and buried the asset that he'd been given. And the master is not pleased. You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was mine with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to all those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. For as for this worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So that's what happens when we use the assets our master gives us. And if we chicken out and bury those assets, we can expect to be thrown into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's pretty clear that we're to use the God-given gifts that we have, and no belly aching about not having been given the gifts that somebody else happens to have. It's always a risk. It's a risky world out there. Don't bury your gifts out of fear that you may screw up. After all, it's all a risk. This parable is almost at the very end of Matthew's Gospel, and it's in a cluster of parables about what it's going to be like when God's new kingdom arrives. There's going to be a moment of accounting for the gifts you have received. Rabbi Ben Ezra was an old rabbi, and he was reflecting on what it might be like when he would meet his Creator. And he was reflecting on what God would hold him responsible for. God will not ask me why I was not Moses, he said. He will not ask me why I was not Elijah. God will ask me why I was not Ben Ezra. Now that's my contribution for today. If you find value in it, I hope you'll pass it along. And God bless you. Stay safe. See you soon.